Hi, you guys. Welcome back. My name is Carrie Penny. I am the Happy Crafty Homemaker. And today we're going to be kind of walking through some general thoughts and opinions on using an Addi knitting machine. Some of these things will be continuous with other plastic-based circular knitting machines. This doesn't get into like the sock machines or anything like that, but like the centros and things like that. Some of these will kind of go across all those borders. But first off, my authority in speaking on this is I have put over 100,000 grams through one machine and like another 10 to 15,000 grams through a second machine. I have killed a machine a natural death and kind of have some thoughts and feelings on these. So first off, there will be some cons, but I will be honest. If you're just wondering a quick yay, nay, I would still say yay, but know these things and be aware of some of these things. If you already knit and crochet, this is a whole different form of crafting. Once again, there are some learning curves, although I thought for me personally, the knitting machine was a pretty quick turnover from figuring out how to cast on to learning how to do other things. Now, I have not utilized the maximized potential of these circular machines. I have made a couple flat panels, but other than that, I haven't learned how to increase and decrease, which you can do on these machines. I've seen a lot of things, especially on Reddit and other forums kind of like that, where the circular knitting machines like these get knocked because they're made out of plastic. And I would agree personally. I really wish, in particularly Addi with their brilliant German engineering, would put a metal gear band on the inner golden ring that holds the needles and on the handle here. It would be very easy to cap this with a metal tooth gear system and just put the plastic ring on top with a metal gear ring underneath. I think the machines would hold up substantially better, but there are things you can do to help with the longevity of your circular knitting machines. But I see a lot of people calling these toys, and truthfully, I've never played with the Centro, so I'm not entirely sure about the Centro, but with the Addi, I would say more than a toy, but it's not a production machine. It is not an industrial machine. It's not made to be used in that way. It's not a production machine. It is a hobby machine. So having said that, kind of keep that in mind as we go across this review. Yes, I think metal gears, in particular on the Addi, would be a much better choice. It would prevent the type of wear and tear issues that we see in the damaged machines, which we will talk about, and it would increase the longevity of the machine, even for the hobby crafter. So let's rewind to the purchasing process. Now, there are a number of places that you can purchase the Addi machines from. I personally have been purchasing mine through Amazon, and it's 100% economy. The price on these machines range from right now $135 to $285, depending on where you are purchasing them from here in the US. Now, there are huge downsides, unfortunately, I have found to purchasing from Amazon. Number one is getting machines that appear, I cannot verify or validate, but appear to be returned machines, whether they were broken on arrival to Amazon and then arrival to the first customer, or whether the customer broke them and returned them as this isn't working for me. I'm not sure, but in particularly in trying to buy a second machine, I can 100% say with 98% certainty that was a returned machine, not listed as a refurbished machine. It was listed new. I purchased it new and received a machine that was very clearly damaged. And based on the way the gears were slipping, I'm going to say somebody used the machine and either put yarn way too heavy through it or used it substantially more, because it literally out of the box started giving me troubles, and troubles that are not normal for an Addi machine. So if you purchase an Addi, number one, you should get caps to slip on your needles. If you're doing flat panel rows, you should receive 4 legs that go into those slots. You should receive 2 clamps to go around adjacent legs to hold this onto a table. Some machines come with picks. Some machines come with, books and things like that, but just your sheer basic out of the box, the bare minimum that should be in there are the stoppers, the feet, and the clamps. And the one that I received is the first replacement machine for this, which is my OG machine that I killed. It didn't have the stoppers in it, which should have been clue number one that there was a problem. So be careful in ordering and where you're ordering from, but I 100% understand economy is also very important. So if you were willing to fight to get the economical choice, I'm not going to judge you, because it's the same thing I've had to do. Now, a lot of people, when I was doing my 30-day challenge to use as much yarn as I could and was really knocking things out with the Addis, had complaints that I killed a machine. So I want to talk about the causes of the death of this machine. Number one, I put 100,000 grams of yarn through this Addi. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. There were things I should have done to better maintain it. Like I probably should have taken it apart sooner to clean it and grease it on the inside. But really, I mean, the gears are fine as long as there's no weight on them. The machine turns. Why are you... As I say that, now it's... Did I flip the switch? I flipped the switch. That was my fault. It rotates just fine with no weight on it. The gears don't start to slip until I'm about 200 rows into a project, and then the weight of the project starts to cause the gears to slip. And it's just wear and tear on the gears. So I'm not mad. One of the reasons why my machine probably died quicker than a lot of other Addi machines would is because I do use a screwdriver to crank for me. Which takes me to our next talking point. I am a fan of using the screwdriver. In the 30-day challenge, I made like 25 panels for larger projects, as well as 60 hat and scarf sets. So I put tons of yarn through these machines, and I wanted to get as much done as I could in that 30-day period. So for me, I have 2 torn rotator cuffs. Doing this is not going to do me any good. So I really need the assistance of a screwdriver to turn the crank for me. Now, having said this, please be aware, if you choose this method, you will have a premature death to your machine. It is a little bit faster than hand cranking, but do use a screwdriver, not a drill. A drill at low speed still probably is too fast for your machine to keep up with the counter and everything else, but you are going to strip those gears so much faster because the torque of the drill is much higher than the torque on a screwdriver. You want a slow, low torque device to do the handle on your Addi machine. A Centra may hold up to a drill better, But if anything catches or anything else, if you're continuing to spin that handle because your tool has too much torque and will just push through it, you are going to break, clip, and round off your gears much quicker. So please take my advice on this one. Use an electric screwdriver or a rechargeable screwdriver, not a drill for this. And once again, these are on Amazon. I can leave a link down below in the description box. It will be an affiliate link, but this is the adapter for the Addi. It clips into your screwdriver. Your handle goes out this area. This just clips onto the round part and you go. So that is one of the reasons why my machine did die a premature death. 100,000 grams is not that premature, but using a screwdriver is a little bit faster than hand cranking, and it does still catch and occasionally try to push through something it shouldn't, like a slub on the yarn or something like that, where the machine can't quite handle it. Or if something does get caught, like you start getting tuck stitches that are stacking. If you're not paying attention, it can try to push through that, which can once again cause your gears to wear prematurely. So I am pro screwdriver. However, know that that is going to decrease the longevity of your machine. If you are just a, one or two item kind of gal or guy, and you're just going to do a couple pieces here and there, just hand crank it. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're trying to do a whole bunch of things at once, you might want to consider getting a screwdriver. Now, the current one that I am using the most is the new IKEA rechargeable one. I will also link the Black & Decker one I have in the description box down below from Amazon. However, my all-time favorite one is the old black and orange one from IKEA that they no longer make. I get about 275 to 350 rows per charge on this. I get about 350 on the old IKEA one, and I get about 300, 375 on the Black & Decker. So they all can do an entire scarf on a single charge. But yeah, while I advocate using these, if you are doing a lot of production stuff, if you want to have the best longevity on your machine, I recommend forgoing the screwdriver and hand cranking your unit. As far as the other biggest thing I can tell you about having one of these machines is you will have to service this machine. I did not service mine soon enough, which definitely did not increase the longevity of the first machine. However, you will definitely need to service your Addi at some point. You are going to have to take it apart. You are going to have to, with warm water, warm soapy water, clean all the pieces and put it back together. But you need to grease it first. And that is where white lithium grease comes into play. It is a non-corrosive, plastic-safe grease for your machine. I have not seen where anything else works as well as that. There is also one other thing I'd like to mention to you guys. Over the course of time of using your machine, you are eventually going to have to, more than likely, especially if you're using a screwdriver, you are going to have to take it apart and shim the handle inside the machine. So this one has been shimmed, and you can see there's no rocking on the handle, but within your first, I would say 1,500 to 3,500 rows cranked on this machine, you are going to start to notice that this will wiggle significantly, and you will see big gaps forming around here. I will link down below the 2 videos that show how to shim the machine. This one I just used the tinfoil method on, and that did get me probably an extra 5,000 to 10,000 grams of yarn through this machine. But by then my gears were already pretty. So as soon as you notice this starts to wiggle, I would definitely recommend going ahead and shimming it, which will once again help with the longevity of the gears. As the gears in this are plastic, they will grind and wear down a lot quicker than metal gears would. but it does also make it very lightweight. It makes it very portable. So there are pros to having this be a plastic gear-based machine, but you are going to have to take this apart and become comfortable with taking it apart. It's not hard, but it is daunting because there are a lot of screws. But like I said, I will leave the 2 videos down below. I do recommend following, watch them a couple of times. See, they do it differently. They both shim their machine differently as well. So definitely take a look at those videos and see how these ladies are doing this, because it definitely helped me watching both of these. My next machine, my new machine, I will be shimming using the plastic method as well as the shimming underneath the bracket for the handle though. As part of maintenance, I kind of want to talk to you guys about these last 2 items. So there's very few things I'm going to say that you have to have or have to do when you have one of these machines. But these 3 things will definitely take you 4 things. These 4 things will take you a long way. Number 1, you are going to want weights. So this will play into number 2, which is the table with a center. But as you are working, one of the things you will find is if your project is not really pulled down, weighted down properly, you'll start getting tuck stitches on the inside, and you're going to have to drop those back and fix them. Otherwise, you're going to have janky stitches in your project, and nobody wants janky stitches if you can make them right. So weights will help significantly with that. It pulls the stitches down into the center of the machine and keeps that weight and the work pulled down and away from the needle. So you do have less of a chance of tuck stitches. Now, it's not foolproof. Picky yarn is still picky yarn. These machines have lives of their minds of their own. Some machines like certain yarns, some machines don't. I wish I could give you a tried and true list of what these things love, but truthfully, every machine I've tried wants something different. This one loved Premier Basic, it loved Vanna's Choice, it loved anti-pilling, it loves wool, it loves acrylic. I mean, I got so many different types of yarns through this one. My old new machine hated almost every single normal acrylic yarn and only liked about 10% of the premium acrylic yarn. Like the only type of Red Heart that it would take is Red Heart Roll With It Melange and Red Heart Soft. It wouldn't take new Red Heart. It wouldn't take old Red Heart. It just did not like those yarns. Whereas this guy, my original machine, it totally loved using Red Heart. It loved using Premier Basics. So each machine's going to have its own preference, but when you do come across those stubborn yarns that are sticking to the needles, creating tuck stitches, or maybe you're even dropping stitches, having the weights will help reduce those things from happening. It won't prevent it 100%. It will just help reduce those things. And I will have a link down below for the ones I personally prefer. I would recommend the ones that have teeth on them, but there are other methods of weighing it down. I've seen where people use pot lids, where people have just plastic clothespins and a pot lid down there. And then when they get enough bulk, they'll roll the project up and the pot lid kind of is just enough on its own. There are a number of ways to do it, but if you just want to be easy peasy lemon squeezy, I recommend the weights. The second item I highly recommend purchasing along with this is some sort of table to put it on. So one thing that's going to give you the best results is if your work can freely hang down from the center of this machine. Can you do it with it bunching up underneath? Of course you can. You're just going to have a much tighter space to work with. You're not going to be able to weight it effectively. And you are going to run the risk of, I find personally, more drop stitches. Not so much the tucks, but definitely more drop stitches. The loops, the project itself pushes up and the needle does not fully return stitches. And when that happens, you can either get tuck stitches or sometimes it'll just drop the stitch entirely because the project is kind of pushing up against it. So I do think a table with some sort of a hole is beneficial. Now, I've seen a number of different ways to do this. For me, I have a workbench, which is no longer in production, and I've got pictures of that for you. But you can get one of these at Harbor Freight for like $25, $35. Mine was on Amazon at the time I bought it. It was $35. You can use, I've seen people take bar stools, kitchen bar stools, turn them upside down and clamp their machine onto that. Some people using C-clamps like I do on the workbench. Some people, putting the legs on their machine and using the clamps that the machine comes with. So you can be very creative with how you do this, but having some sort of a work surface where you can allow the work to fall straight down really will help you to have some of the best possible results with this machine. These last two items that I highly recommend having are part of daily regular use, or not daily regular use, but like just as you're using the machine, these are good to have on hand. After you're done with each project, I definitely recommend using canned air to spray the floofs out of your Addi. It's also not a bad practice if you store it out in the open and not in the box, if you don't like break everything down before you start working, just kind of a little bit with it, just to make sure that there's nothing in there that's going to prevent the needles from going up and down like they're supposed to, and nothing is going to impede the crank. Now, it's not as bad as like blowing out a sewing machine where you can shove fluff further into the machine, but as part of regular maintenance and servicing, you are going to eventually have to take this apart and clean the rest of the fluff out. There is no open carriage for this, so there's no place for the fluffs to fly out. But, I mean, truthfully, every 20,000, 25,000 grams of yarn you put through it is really, or grams, yeah, 20,000 grams. It's probably about when you need to clean it if you're using it a lot regularly. Unfortunately for me, that would have been, in 30 days, I would have had to break it down and clean it 3 times. But it is what it is. But I do think, this does definitely help 100%. And the other thing is static can be an issue. Now, I live in the humid South, but we have had a very dry spell for fall. And definitely have had a lot of static issues where the yarn is wanting to stick to the needle because of a static attraction. So having dryer sheets to run the yarn through as it's coming into the machine is definitely a nice thing to have. It also helps with a lot of those fidgety yarns just to kind of slide a little bit better. There's less to kind of hold on to. So I don't use these for the wash. I had to actually go out and buy a box of these specifically to use with the Addi, but dryer sheets definitely help make difficult yarns a little bit easier to use on the machine, regardless of using a screwdriver or manually cranking. I know there are a number of the machine knitters who use this for every single yarn. Personally, I only use it when I'm having issues, especially with tucked stitches, which is where the stitch doesn't come off the needle. So you end up with 2 stitches or 3 stitches stacking up on the needle. Yeah, so definitely consider investing in some dryer sheets if you don't already have some. Other things that you'll kind of need, some of the machines come with a stitch pick, which is great, but you can use a crochet hook or purchase a loom hook. Yarn is about the only other thing. This is made to use a size 4 yarn to the best gauge and tension. However, as I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of the 0 through 7. This specifically works best with worsted weight yarn. Aran tends to be a little bit too husky for it. Bulky is definitely a no-go. Now, I have seen where people have found DK weight chenille yarns that go through this beautifully, and I probably wouldn't mind really giving that a shot if I had some, but I wouldn't recommend anything that has too much ability to defloof in your machine, just because it's going to create jams in the machine, even if it's a lighter weight. But I have run DK weight through my machine. This one's the old one, original one, specifically, and got some really neat effects. A lot of people enjoy doing like the drop stitch scarves and stuff. And to be honest, using DK weight yarn gives you a very similar effect without having to fuss with dropping stitches. So it feels like a little less of a waste of time to me personally, but you can get a thinner fabric. It's got a much holier effect because you are limited to the gauge of the machine. So the only thing that you can do to kind of create different effects is using different size yarns there. But really, it is made to use a worsted weight, and generally a finer worsted weight yarn, to the best effect. But I mean, like I said, I've used Red Heart, just OG Super Saver and Okiotech Super Saver. I love this yarn. I've used Vanna's Choice. I've used Premier Basics, Premier Anti-Pilling, Knit Picks, Brava. I used Woolies from Lion Brand, Heartland from Lion Brand. I don't think I put any of the rovings through it yet, although I do kind of want to. I've done DK weight yarns, beautiful effect. I don't think there's anything else that I've got readily available that I put through there. I have seen a couple people using the shawl and a ball yarns with it, but once you purchase a machine and sit down with it, you will discover what your machine likes the most and what goes through it the most. I mean, like mine may love Vanna's, yours might not. Unfortunately, even though the weight is fine, they really machine to machine are different. And it's not just from Addi to Centro. Each Addi I have worked on has been different from each other. So it's a little frustrating that you can't just like, okay, I'm buying a case of this yarn. Oh, Ice Favorites went through both of these spectacularly. But yeah, I mean, try a couple different yarns and see what your machine likes is really my best. I hate to not be able to give you something more concrete with that, but that really is some of the best advice that I can give you on that. So anyway, these are my thoughts and feelings on the Addi machine and kind of a jump start on what to kind of know in going forward if you choose to buy one. So if I did not answer a question you have, please leave it down below. I generally try to reply to all the comments within 1 to 2 weeks. It just depends on how life is. And this week's going to be a little crazy, to be honest. And this is the kind of video where people will come back, 2 years later and be like, oh, I just found this video. That's awesome. Great. Welcome, you guys. If you are new to my channel and this is your very first video, hi. But if you still have a question, leave it down below. If I don't get to it, one of my subscribers probably will as well. My community is a very supportive community. Frequently, they do read the comment sections on these videos and help each other out down below if I, for some reason, haven't gotten back to somebody yet. So definitely leave a comment down below. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you have an Addi machine or have a lot of experience using your Addi machine or a Centro machine, what are some of the tips and tricks that you have found that work best for you, or what has your purchasing experience been like? What type of projects have you gotten? Because I am really dying to do a cardigan with decreased sleeves. And I've seen a couple videos on how to decrease and increase using this machine. And I really want to play. I just haven't had time yet. So anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to seeing you real soon. Bye.